Coming up, the winter break looms large in Italy, Spain, France and Germany, while the Premier League hots up. Huge wins for Stuttgart and Lazio. Manchester United, however, fall again. Chelsea get a new manager, and Pep Guardiola, he'll be off then. All that and more on today's festive edition of the Football Hipsters podcast. All right. Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. This is episode 10. We're 10 already. Can you believe it? My name is Kris. I am your host as always, and I'm joined only the two hipsters this evening. It's like everyone has run away, but it's the Christmas season. It's holiday time, so people are away. But fear not. I'm still joined by two of our finest. I'm joined by Drew and I'm joined by John. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Evening, Kris. Evening, Drew.
Evening.
We have a mountain to get through, gentlemen. A mountain to get through. So we will crack on straight away. And as always with this pod, we will start with the Mighty 90. Right, this week, Drew, we're going to start with you. And I have a feeling it might not be quite a good one for all of us this week. Well, actually, maybe John's will be good. But Drew, let's start with yours. I'm going to bring up the clock now. And your Mighty 90 begins now.
Well, yeah, as they say, all good things must come to an end. And unfortunately, Feyenoord's trip to Tricky NEC Nijmegen proved to be just that, as we dropped all 3 points in a 3-1 loss. The match started well. Actually, we went 1-0 up in the 20th minute through Tony Valina. I know, Kris, you've heard of him. I'm sure Johnny, you've heard of him as well. And we went into the interval on the front foot, and we remained there until the 60th minute when Janu Bikel restored parity. And then 5 minutes later, the home side went 2-1 up through Anthony Limbom. And then after that, we were kind of truly starved as we only could manage 4 shots in the final 20 minutes. We were trying to get that, that equalizer back late on. And then matters only got worse in the 85th minute when Christian Santos put the result beyond dispute. So it's worth mentioning that in the absence of Simon Gustafsson, we've failed to win in the last 2 league fixtures without him. And we had to scrape by in the KNVB Cup against Willem II, which took place in midweek. So the result sees us back down to third. As PSV continue to roll. So as I said, we're third on 36 points rather. PSV is second on 38 and Ajax is first on 41. Why this loss was so poorly timed, we host PSV in the next league fixture on January 17th, so a nice little break. But a win does see us back up to second on points, and it'll be good to have about a month off and charge a little bit, hopefully, and then hopefully we'll have Gustafsson back by then. So ready and raring to go. Once the Christmas period is done, we'll see where it goes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That is your time. You're getting good at this. Right.
That's a stopwatch.
Yeah, it is. John, you are up next, and let's see what's happening in Germany. Good news, I feel is on the horizon here. Your Mighty 90 begins now.
Where to start? It hasn't been the best of weeks lately for Gladbach. We lost our losing streak, and it didn't carry on it carried on in the same way, losing 4-3 to Werder Bremen in the Pokal, which is the German Cup to you and me, in midweek. But then at the weekend we were at home to Darmstadt in the league. Thought things were going well. Raphael hit the post early on in the game, looking good. Unfortunately, it didn't carry on that way as Heller scored the first goal and Darmstadt went 1-0 up. Things just got worse after when Granit Xhaka decided to completely lose control and kick a player completely off the ball, not in play, and got himself sent off. So he went down to 10 men. That's his 3rd red this season. Quite impressive for him. However, we did manage to recover. 6 minutes later, Lars Stindl, who's been on really good form ever since he's joined the club, great finish from outside the box to level things up. Into the second half, started playing much better again. Nordveit scored an absolutely ridiculous goal from a really long-range free kick, something I've never really seen him do or attempt before. But then Darmstadt pulled another one back, Wagner this time, from a cross from Heller. A bit frenetic finish to the game, but we did manage to secure the win and get out of the slump we've been in, with Oscar Wendt finishing a nice 1-2 with Stindl to put us 3-2 up. So that's us 4th in the league coming into the winter break, and I think I'm just about to run out of time.
You are indeed. That is your time. Thank you very much. Do love Oscar Wendt. Do love it. A bit of I think he might have to make an appearance in a certain section we do in this podcast at some point. Good stuff. Right then, let's move it along to my good self. Then I shall put the stopwatch, and my time begins now. So this week, two fixtures to catch up on from Lorient. I'm going to start with the midweek match where they beat Dijon in the Coupe de la Ligue, but unfortunately, then it was into the weekend. Now I've got to try and drag out a 0-0 draw here. Shall I just go hum for a little while? It's not really going to work, is it? It was at Le Moustoir, 14,711. It was a Brittany derby versus Nantes. And 0-0 draw. Johan Joufre had a sort of first chance in the 8th minute, but it was high and wide. And Alessandro Bedoya had a shot blocked in 20 minutes. Majid Waris had a chat. He was returning from suspension after going nuts, you might recall, a few weeks ago. He had a shot blocked in 22. And Benjamin Lecomte made a good parry away on 32 from a shot from Odell, so it was half-time 0-0. And then into the second half, nothing much changed really. Lecomte having to make another good save from Lucas Doe. But then in the last few minutes, Lorient had a real chance to win the match. But they couldn't quite get there. It was Benjamin Jeannot and Majid Waris both going close. Jeannot in particular was well saved by Rio as he tried to lob him, but he couldn't get the winner, and that was from close range. So it ended 0-0, and Lorient in the league table going into the winter break, they are sitting in 8th on 26 points, only one defeat in their last 8 at home. Winter break now is until January the 3rd, and the next fixture is in the Coupe de la Ligue at home to Tours, who are 12th in Ligue 2. So there you go. So I just about managed that. It was actually more to fit in than I thought. So there we go. Right, let's move on then. And we'll take our usual whistle-stop tour around this week's world of football. Right, world of football this week. Some stats for you, fine gentlemen and ladies. We have lots of goals this weekend. In the total 5 leagues across Europe, we had a total goals of 127. Serie A, John will be pleased to know, was the highest scoring league with 32 goals scored this weekend. In the clean sheets department, there were 26 across Europe's big 5. La Liga and Liga both claiming 7 apiece as the highest total. Red card wise, Serie A was a bit naughty this weekend with a high of 6, and there was 17 across the 5 leagues. And again, the home wins across these leagues, there was 22 home wins, 7 of which was the highest total in the Bundesliga this weekend, and the away wins total was 17. 5 was the highest score for both Premier League and Serie A clubs. The biggest upset this weekend I've given to Manchester United 1, Norwich 2. Not really a big surprise why I've given it that one. I think it's just a massive shock, even though United are not playing particularly well. For Norwich to go there and claim a 2-1 win was a magnificent result for them. And the biggest win, or most important win, it's hard to justify which is which, but I've given it to Stuttgart this weekend. They, as Drew will touch on shortly, they pulled out a very, very much needed victory over Wolfsburg by 3-1. Massive result for them going into the winter break. So that's some stats for you. So we'll move on now to our individual leagues, and because we're missing a few of the crew this week, it's going to be double duty for me and John. But we're going to start this week at home with the Premier League. Right, John, I'm going to pass it across to you, as it were, to talk about the Premier League this week in Danny's absence. I'd like to start with the top of the table. Well, I say top of the table, certainly top end of the table clash. Claudio Ranieri's Leicester. They just keep rolling on. They were away to a tricky-looking tie at Everton this weekend. Tell us about that game.
Yeah, it seems strange to say it, although I suppose we should be used to it now. Leicester are top of the league and will be for Christmas. That is something I certainly didn't expect to say. They got a 3-2 win over Everton. Two penalties for Leicester, I think both justifiably given in the game. Both scored by Mahrez. That was either side of a goal for Lukaku. And no goal for Jamie Vardy this week, but he did get an assist, a nice squared ball for Okazaki. That was to make it 3-1. Morales got the sort of consolation goal for Everton near towards the end of the game. Really good finish and a really nice assist from Ross Barkley. It's worth looking up that goal. It's just amazing how this Leicester team just keep performing, keep winning, keep grinding out results. It's fair to say Everton probably should have got a draw out of the game, but just couldn't do it in the end. And probably the most impressive thing, I think I mentioned this on another show earlier, but Leicester were without Robert Hoof, Drinkwater and Schlupp for this game. Three players who've been really important for them so far this season. So showing they've got a bit of depth as well. So well done to Ranieri, not so much the Tinker Man anymore, trying to keep consistent sides, and really good result for them.
In the rain, as were a lot of Premier League games this weekend, it was absolutely soaking pitch, which may have contributed towards a couple of those penalties, methinks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were justified, the penalties they got, but yeah, it certainly did help. You know, if someone puts a hand on your shoulder and gives you a little tug on the shirt, it's going to be a bit easier to go down.
Yeah, particularly Okazaki seemed to go down quite easily under Funes Mori's challenge, but nevertheless, Leicester keep rolling on. How about Chelsea? Now I know there's a little bit of news to cover as far as the Premier League goes, and you can touch on it a bit here now. Everyone will probably know by now that Jose Mourinho was indeed relieved of his duties in midweek. It has been announced that Gus Hiddink is going to take over. He was on a watching brief alongside Didier Drogba as Sunderland came to the bridge. Was it back to the Chelsea we sort of remember?
Close to, if not a perfect performance. They got a 3-1 win in the end, and it was fairly comfortable. Steve Holland, one of the coaches, taking charge of this game, he's going to be staying on with the coaching staff because Hiddink's already announced that. It was a strange atmosphere because there was a lot of banners around the ground for Jose Mourinho. His name was sung out. A lot of booing for certain players. Ivanovic was one, which I thought was a little bit strange. Cesc Fabregas and Diego Costa were the two of the others who were booed by the Chelsea fans, and they've sort of been singled out as the people who've got Mourinho the boot out of the club. As for the game itself, no one was booing Ivanovic when he scored very early on from a corner, and then Pedro as well early on. I think it was within about 20 minutes in the game. Oscar then scored a penalty later early into the second half. Sunderland did get a goal back from Fabio Borini, who ran up around the pitch as if he'd won the World Cup with the ball. But it was just a weird atmosphere. The Chelsea players who did play looked more comfortable and more relaxed. Whether that's got to do with Mourinho going or there's less expected of them, I'm not really sure. In a weird way, I've never thought I'd say this, I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Mourinho because it does kind of feel like he was actually justified in what he said about his players betraying him because they clearly weren't listening to him anymore. But the fans really not happy with what's happened. But I think we've seen before when Hiddink came in at Chelsea, he's a good manager and he knows what he's doing. So I'm sure he can turn around. And we all know that they've got quality there. As for Sunderland, they were just very poor, really, really poor, which is surprising because they've been playing better. They even in the Arsenal game where they'd lost, I think we all agreed that they played quite well in that game and possibly could have got something out of it with a bit better finishing. But they've got a really tough run now. They're away to City and home to Liverpool in the next two games. So it's not going to be easy for them. Gus Hiddink will take charge of Chelsea for their home game to Watford.
Yes, that's coming up on Boxing Day, isn't it? I think the next fixtures.
Yeah.
We'll touch on those in a second. What about Manchester United? Now, I touched on, obviously, people will know the result by now, but losing at home to Norwich. Now, you know, we follow Premier League football with the club that we support as a group here, but I don't think even we could have foreseen Norwich going to Old Trafford and winning it. I wouldn't say a canter, but they didn't really have to do a lot to win the game, did they?
No, they look quite comfortable. There's no win now in 6 for Man United, and coming into this game, that's Norwich's first win in 4 So you really wouldn't have picked Norwich to get a result there. I mean, a draw maybe wasn't out of the reckoning for them because they have got some good players, but the fact they went 2 goals up, Cameron Jerome and Alex Tettey, and some really bad, just rank bad defending from United, which we've said before this on the pods previous this season that's been their one sort of saving grace. If they haven't played particularly exciting football, they've been very solid at the back, and that just seems to have disappeared. They got a consolation goal from Anthony Martial, and they did push Man United, and the fans stuck with the players at least, but they were booing Van Gaal himself. And there was even a very small section, not a large section I want to point out, but there were a small section of Man United fans singing Jose Mourinho's name. So it was just this bizarre weekend of football where you've got one set of fans screaming for their manager who's been fired and booing their own players, and the other set of fans trying to get their manager out and bring this one in who's been a spectacular failure, even though everyone knows how successful he is. It's some real issues there at Man United. The one saving grace was that Juan Mata was fantastic on the day for Man United. He was the one player who came off the pitch with his head held high. And strangely enough, he played so well because he was played at the number 10 role. Wayne Rooney had a good couple of chances to give Man United the lead and didn't take them. And maybe if Rooney wasn't on the pitch and it was Martial or someone else up front, then they might have got a different result. But it's not looking good for LVG.
No, it's really not. And I thought De Gea was really at fault for at least one of the goals. Certainly the first goal. I thought he was poor.
Just the confidence seems to have drained out that side. I mean, it's fair to say that Man United are struggling with injuries, though. To be fair, especially at the back in defence, they really have suffered. So, but these are things that you have to deal with as a team and get through. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The final game I want to touch on, speaking of injuries, a club close to our hearts, played at the time of recording just a couple of hours ago. It was a top-of-the-table clash at the Emirates. Arsenal running out victors over Manchester City by 2-1. I'll just let you sort of go for goal on this one. It was a slow burner, but quite an entertaining game in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it didn't start off the most exciting, and Man City looked to have control of the game, but then out of nowhere, up pops Theo Walcott and scores a fantastic goal. Really, really good. Another assist from Mesut Ozil. Seems to be all he does this season. And then we get a second, quickly, not long after that, for Olivier Giroud. Again, the assist from Ozil. Really composed, great finish, straight through Joe Hart's legs. Nice nutmeg. And then it looked fairly comfortable for Arsenal, basically, up until, I think it was it around the 80th minute? I've got no notes for this game because it's only just happened. This is dreadful, I've already forgotten.
80 seconds, you went far
80
away.
second, there we go. Yaya Toure, who had basically had the entire game off, not doing anything, decided to start playing football and scored a absolutely stunning goal. Petr Cech didn't even move, he just sort of watched in amazement as it flew into the one place in the net he couldn't get to. And then City really pushed for the last 10 minutes, but it was all too little too late, and I think a deserved win for Arsenal in the end. City definitely didn't play to their best, I think that's fair to say, but Arsenal got the result they needed on the day. Keeping distance with Leicester City at the top, which is a strange thing to say, but Manchester City will be disappointed. I think they would have happily taken a draw there, and I think really if you'd asked Arsene Wenger before the game, he probably would have said, yeah, a draw would be fine, but to get the 3 points really helps us for, helps us, everyone knows we're Arsenal fans, helps us for a push for the title this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the cat's out of the bag now,
Just
unfortunately. Yeah. But we will always remain unbiased on this podcast, whether it be friend or foe. So, what about the? Just give us a quick rundown of the other results in the Premier League this weekend and where that leaves the table.
Yeah, sure. So Tottenham went out 2-0 winners against Southampton, which is a good result. Bournemouth keep their winning ways, 2-1 win against West Brom. James McClean with a quite spectacular red card tackle in that game, which
Shocking.
If you haven't seen it, you really need to look it up. If he's not banned for more than 3 games, I don't know what's going on in football.
And it's not the first time either, is it?
Yeah, it's no really, really stupid challenge. Stoke lost at home 2-1 to Palace. Newcastle got a 1-1 draw with Villa, which I don't know who that's a good result for, to be perfectly honest, the form both those teams are in. Watford got a fantastic 3-0 win over Liverpool, really, really well done for them. And Swansea got a 0-0 with West Ham. So in terms of the league table, that leaves us, as I said, with Leicester at the top, 2 points behind our Arsenal, and then it's a further 4 points back to Man City, and then Spurs, Man United and Crystal Palace are 4th to 6th, all on 29 points, with Watford in 7th on 28. So really amazing. Down at the bottom, Aston Villa just looking more and more dreadful each week. 7 points, rock bottom. Sunderland now on 12. Swansea slipping into the bottom 3 on 15. Newcastle upper place on 17 points, same as Norwich, and Chelsea only just above them on 18. So it's tight down at the bottom, but at the top, the sort of the top three just starting to pull away a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's fair to say it looks like a three horse race almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We can but hope. Now, we haven't really got any Premier League news as such this week, but you wanted to do just a quick tribute on one of the game's greats this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the news everyone's talking about is Mourinho. We covered that briefly, but there was sad news this week as Jimmy Hill died at the age of 87. He'd been struggling with Alzheimer's for quite a few years, but it's just the guy we wanted to talk about and give a little praise to. I mean, I never saw him as a player. Obviously, I saw him as a pundit in his later years. Made over 600 appearances on Match of the Day. He was also on the Sunday supplement on Sky Sports as well. If you're a UK listener, you'd be familiar with that. He played 297 games for Fulham, and then he went on to become a manager at a very young age at Coventry. And he was the man who changed them to the Sky Blues. It was called the Sky Blue Revolution. Took them from Division 3 all the way to the top flight. Really sort of revolutionised the way they played, improved tactics, and just an all-round really nice guy and really well respected. So a sad loss for the football world, but just wanted to give a little tribute to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And my favourite memory was being blown up on Comic Relief Match of the Day. That was by Alan Hansen. Yeah. Not for real, of course. It was a sketch, but it was very, very amusing. And yeah, absolutely a sad loss to football. And and unfortunately, that is becoming more and more regular. The greats of the games are passing on. But not to worry, we'll sort of leave it at that fitting tribute. But thank you for that. That draws a line into the Premier League. Then let's hop across the channel next and see what is happening in Liga.
Okay, this is where I take the reins from Kris. So, Kris, can you tell me about Gazielek Ajaccio versus Lyon, and have Lyon got a new manager yet?
Oh, I'd be delighted to tell you about Gazielek Ajaccio. They're fast becoming my obviously not favourite because of being a Lorient follower, but Gazielek, they're just a joy. They just really are a joy to watch. That they sort of play some good enterprising football, and we've gone over the budget and the small budget on the last podcast and whatnot, and that's amazing in itself. But to now sort of be beating teams like Lyon, who granted are on the slide, but it was just a magnificent day for all concerned. 2 goals for Mohamed Labi, who's very much one of the players to keep an eye on this year. He's been fantastic and really is a bit of a talisman for Gazielek, playing in their sort of tiny stadium. Does have to be said that Maxime Gonalons did make 2 pretty rash errors. In fairness, he slipped for the second, but losing the ball for the first didn't really help, and he's playing out of position at centre back because of Lyon's injury crisis, which again we've documented before on the pod. Clement Grenier did get one back from a Gazelle cross on 72 minutes, but by that point, despite Lyon sort of pushing, they just didn't have the cutting edge, and they went down to yet another defeat. Now, at the time of recording, the manager for Lorient, Herbert Fournier, is still technically in charge. That's at time of recording. We do expect that to change. I will touch on that a little bit more in the news, but there's a lot of press going around about the situation. The chairman, Jean-Michel Aulas, was indeed there, or president was indeed at the game. He did actually confirm this week that to Telefoot that talks between him and Juninho were not happening or had not happened. There's been a lot of talk that that's what was going on, but apparently he has denied that. And the same, of course, with Leonardo, who you might remember, ex-Brazilian international.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, former PSG sporting director. He's recently finished his ban from managing and working in France, which again some people might recall, which was overturned by the FFF. And he's admitted that he is putting himself back on the market. But Aulas has said that no talks have have taken place. And whether you believe that or not is open to debate. And just finally on the Lyon situation, the latest name to be linked with, John, you'll know him well, Lucien Favre.
Yes, speaks French very well.
Indeed, he does. And again, Telefoot, the source here, have said that Lyon representatives have contacted the former Gladbach manager about the possibility to replace Herbert Fournier should he move on, which again, we're all pretty much sure he will. Swiss journalist Armand Cerruti of La Tribune de Geneviève reports that Favre is very interested in Lyon's project and has already turned down offers from Swansea and Galatasaray. So watch this space as far as Lyon go, both in January for exits and entrances, and of course immediately or in the immediate future with what's going on with the managerial situation.
Well, personally, I'd love to see Lucien back in a job.
I think he'd do a good job as well.
Yes, I think he would. Young team, it's just what he needs. Let's move on. Now, last week I wrongly said that Gazalek and Napoleon were the only two things I knew that come from Corsica, but of course Bastia from there as well. Yes. So how did Bastia get on?
Yes, we can't forget about little Bastia, can we? They're very easily forgotten about, bless them. But I'll give them some love. It was a massive win for them. They came out 2-0 winners in a game. I mean, they've been in a little bit of a slump, I think it's fair to say, and it was a much needed victory by 2-0 over Ram, who are also struggling. I'll come to them in a second. But Floyd Aite, who's very much the talisman, it's actually his first Ligue 1 goal in 16 matches, which is quite a stat when he's your talisman. It's always a bit of a worry. But it's only their third win in 11, so it's a really important win for Bastia, who will hope that will springboard them up the table. However, for Rams, not looking so good. 5 defeats in 8 away from home. They really, really struggle away from home, and when their home form hasn't been particularly good either. They've only taken 3 draws and a win from their last 5, which doesn't sound bad on current form. But when you look at the rest of Liga, where the teams below them are winning, they're on the slide. Not quite as bad as Gangomp, who really are in free fall. But Rams are looking nervously over their shoulder, whereas this weekend Bastia have leapfrogged them into a position above them in the table.
Okay, now what about Toulouse? Did they manage to get through a game without shooting themselves in the foot this week?
What do you think?
I'm gonna hedge and say no.
You'd be absolutely right. Yeah, unfortunately, Toulouse do have a very nice habit of shooting themselves in the foot, usually with two pistols in both feet simultaneously, twice in the same game. And they did it again. They've only won twice in 10 home games now, which is really starting to become a problem for them. And the Doumbia sending off is what really cost them in this game. They were 1-0 up, and this is where things are really going to be a problem for them, because Wissam Ben Yedder, who's a player I really like, he put them ahead on 11 minutes and all seemed to be going quite well. And then, yes, Doumbia, 2 bookable offences. He was dismissed. Tongo Doumbia, this is, and everything changed. Leo sort of gained momentum from it. He was sent off in the 68th minute, so Leo had plenty of time. They started to get possession. Djibril Sidibe hit the post twice from left back, I should stress. Only for Sofiane Boufal, who's known to this parish quite well as one of our former Hipsters Choice. He rattled in an unstoppable screamer from Seb Korchia's layoff. Very intricate
that
one
was,
too.
Yeah, the longest 1-2 I've ever seen.
It really was.
Great goal though.
Really was. He absolutely spanked it into the top of the net and then ran off much in Barini fashion to celebrate. But it's another good point for Lille, who really just turned their season around. Antonetti, there was doubts about how he would do, but 3 wins and a draw from the last 4 has catapulted them up the table, and they're now 11th. And when you consider that Lyon are only 2 points ahead of them in the table now, it's quite a turnaround for Antonetti, and Lille are starting to look like a goal threat now. And the biggest worry for them is if they will lose Boufal, and I'll come to that in a second.
Yeah, that's always the worry of the smaller clubs losing their star players. I suppose we can't really have a League One update without talking about PSG. I'm going to have a guess that they won again.
Yeah, they did. I think Liga is probably over. I think we've said this for a while, but it would only be fair to give them a mention. 51 points they've accumulated from 19 games. They are yet to lose a game. They've conceded just 9 goals and scored 48 in their 19 games. And they are indeed 19 points clear at the top of Liga now, ahead of Monaco. So I think it's fair to say that they are going to be wrapping up this title sooner rather than later. What I will say, again, a lot of sort of criticism of PSG last year, where they were sort of just, eking out results. They weren't really impressing anybody. What I would have to say is this year they can be a joy to watch, and no more so than Angel Di Maria, who since his move and since he's settled, he is just an absolute pleasure to watch. Just more assists and goals than I've seen even in his Real Madrid days. He just looks so comfortable in the setup. And PSG cruised it a 3-0 victory at Caen, who you shouldn't sort of discount Caen. I mean, they're having a fantastic season. They're still fourth, which is an amazing achievement. But Di Maria put PSG in front. Zlatan scored an absolute howitzer. Looked that one up. Just came to him about 25 yards out. No thought, just walloped it straight to the top corner. And then Di Maria got his second on 50 minutes, and that sealed the points, and Caen were out of it. One other thing in this game, the most bizarre sort of save and block period. There was a shot that hit the bar, came back out, shot came in, Zlatan overhead kick, keeper saved it with his knees, and then shot came in, blocked away again. It was the most bizarre sort of 20 seconds I've seen in Liga this season. But PSG keep rolling on, and I think it would be pretty hard place to say that they don't deserve it. One other quick noticeable thing from this game, though, Adrien Rabiot, who's been rather outspoken again. I've got a short bit on him in a minute. He came on for Thiago Motta and was booed by his own supporters.
Oh, that is never good.
No.
There we go. I think is that a new record as well in Ligue 1 for points total? I think
Yes.
it was Lyon previously had 50 points.
Absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure I read that somewhere. So
you did.
We do research.
Yeah, we do read stuff.
Right, if you want to give us the rest of the results from the league and the table, please.
Yeah, so elsewhere we had Nice beat Montpellier in the Friday game by 1-0. Boscagli, the youngster, getting a goal. Incidentally, a lot of people have asked me, why do some players in Liga not have their names on the shirts? Simple as this: if they're not given a squad number at the start of the season, and if so, essentially they're a youth product, they don't actually put the names on the shirts. So if you're looking out for young talent, look at players without shirt names, and you know they're quite young. So Boscagli did get the winning goal for Nice that game. Guingamp, I mentioned them briefly. 5 straight defeats now. They lost 2-0 at home to Rennes. A goal for Dembele in that game. More on him later. Troyes, Monaco 0-0. Oh dear. Tut. Troyes played for a long period. In fact, they played 87 minutes with 10 men, and Monaco still couldn't score, and they missed a penalty. Not good. Falcao, anyone? Lorient Nantes, as we said, 0-0 in the Mighty 90 earlier on. And St Etienne beat Angers by 1-0. Benjamin Congré getting the winner there. And in the Sunday game, Bordeaux and Marseille ended up drawing 1-1. Little fun stat for you in that game. Marseille still haven't won at Bordeaux. The last time they won at Bordeaux was 1977. 31 games. That is since they've last won there. And another quick side issue as well. Lyon in the table now. To give you the table, Lyon are now down to 9th, which is incredible when you think that they were still sort of 4th and doing all right. Troyes, they're doomed, I think, as well. They are bottom of the table on 8 points. Toulouse, Guingamp, Ram, Bastia, Montpellier make up the bottom 5. PSG top 51, as we said. Monaco 32 points. Angers 31. Cannes 30. And Nice make up the top 5 on 29, joint with St Etienne on the same points. Marseille, they're comfortably next to Lyon in 10th. So it's a really entertaining league this year. It's been fun, and long may it continue.
Yeah. Have you got any other news for us? I'm particularly excited to see if we've got any new news on Rihanna or on any other entertainment that
you know
you've
what?
had for the last few weeks.
I tried really, really hard to find some juicy gossip this week, and I couldn't find any clothes news or gossip, or I couldn't find anything. I'm gutted.
Oh, dreadful.
I know. So instead, I'm going to have to plough your ears with just a bit of transfer speculation instead. Don't we all love it? Sofiane Boufal, quote, interested in joining PSG. Again, the source Telefoot, he had this to say: of course, PSG is the type of club that you dream to play for, and it's the only French club that I could win the European trophy with. They have an absolutely magnificent project. It's a club in the top 3 or 4 in Europe. They want to bring in great players, but also very promising players, and of course, that project interests me. So yes, keep an eye on that one. Also, Riyad Mahrez, the Leicester flyer, who's of course been linked with a move elsewhere a number of times, and you'll remember on this podcast we mentioned about mentioned about the previous pod about the links with Marseille and their chairman sort of poo-pooing the idea of him signing. Well, on the January transfer window, he had this to say that he doesn't think he'll leave because he's got a very good fit at Leicester. But of course, there'll be noises that are made, and it's good that clubs are interested in you. But I've got a very good feeling at Leicester, and I'll be stupid to leave in January, especially as we're in first position. And just briefly on the email, he said about the Marseille president snubbing him. He said, "I saw the email at the time, as everyone else did, and they called my agent and asked him if it was at all true. My agent said yes. I spoke with him, and everything he said was true, but I had no need to tell you. So in terms of that, in terms of reaction, I pay no attention to these things." So it's quite interesting that was actually factual. And then the final two bits of news, I mentioned Adrien Rabiot with his outburst for the president and PSG, Nasser El Khalifi. He's not particularly chuffed, I think it's fair to say. He's quote, very disappointed. He felt that his words were unacceptable, and he doesn't appreciate the fact that a homegrown player is looking for a, quote, Christmas present of a loan deal. He comes from our youth academy, and the club's given him a lot. I will never accept him thinking that he's more important than the club. The club will always be more important than the player. So I think that's pretty blunt towards Rabiot. And Al Ahmada, who's widely regarded as the worst goalkeeper ever to play in Liga, has had his contract terminated by mutual agreement with Toulouse. So he's only 24. He will be looking for a new club, which is expected to be Turkish side Kayserispor. So
that's a hotly contested title as well. Worst goalkeeper in Ligue 1. There's quite a few candidates.
Over the years, there's been quite a few terrible goalkeepers. So
I joke, of course.
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, keep an eye on this situation with Lyon because at time of recording, we haven't heard anything, but I think that's probably going to start to crank up in the next coming days.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you very much, Kris. I'll hand back to you.
Splendid, thank you very much. Right, I feel like we need to wake Drew up because he's probably sat there thinking, well, am I going to come on or what? Of course he is. Let's go over then and see what's happening in this week's Bundesliga. Right then, Drew, you're still with us.
Yeah. Took a little nap, but that's all right.
He left the delay.
Deliberate pause for effect, that was. Right, so Bundesliga. Lots going on this weekend. Lots of key games before the winter break. I want to start with that game that we mentioned in the sort of world roundup, the Stuttgart game. Massive result, 3-1 victory over Wolfsburg. What have you got to tell us on this one?
All right. Well, I mean, the Jurgen Kramny caretaker era continued. It's yielding positive results for De Roten, and they dispatched Wolfsburg 3-1 at home. And I mean, it highlights how struggling Wolfsburg have been lately, but that's another discussion for another time. But Daniel Didavi played really well. He bagged a brace. Philip Kostic had the third. But despite that, Wolfsburg actually opened the scoring through Maximilian Arnold in the 13th minute. It was definitely a 90-minute version of attack against defense for those of you who have played before. Wolfsburg had nearly 74% of the possession and double the efforts on goal. They won every major statistical category on the day, except the only one that mattered in the end. So it's one of those stories where when you don't take your chances, you won't see out the result. Stuttgart, they thrive on the counter. They have players like Didavi, Kostic, Timo Werner. All those guys are very direct. They like to 2-3 passes to try and get into your box. So Stuttgart deployed that way again, and they counted very, very well. And they capitalized, when they could. And despite, Tony Sunic being sent off for a second yellow in the 69th minute, they still walked away for full value, and they're finally out of the bottom three. So it'll be interesting to see what happens during the winter break, if they can get right back to it at the beginning of the Rückrunde, or will they have to reestablish form. But there's a little bit more news. We can go into that later on when we go into the new segment of that. But no, they've been looking much better under Kramny. They have that a little bit of stability now again. he's been consistent with the players he's wanted to use. He's coming. He knows the system he wants to employ. He wants to stick with that counter to kind of really use the pace they have in the forward players. It's been working out very well. But again, questions for Wolfsburg. So they get that winter break coming up now to maybe sort of find the answers and maybe dip into the market if they need to. So we'll see how it goes for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched this game, and that was it. The second Didavi goal where he absolutely spanked it from
Yeah.
That was an absolute ripper. It's vital they keep him because there's a lot of talk about him being sniffed around by the club. So I think he hasn't he made some noises about possibly moving on or.
I haven't heard too much of it, but it would not surprise me if he actually did move on. Especially because despite them being in form, you have to imagine Stuttgart aren't going to get anywhere near a European place, and whether if he moves to a better Bundesliga club or if he moves abroad, who knows? But I could actually see him leaving, in truth. But we'll see how they do. Stuttgart always can bring players through. He'd actually fetch a pretty good price given his form. So you never know what will happen. But they do have Arianted Ferrari in the system. He plays a similar style as Didavi. So if he did leave, they could automatically replace him with a player who was already in the system, and that would make the loss maybe a little bit more manageable.
Kind of like for like. Let's switch gears then. Talk to me this week about Augsburg. Now we've covered the fact that they've had a sort of a bit of a skiddy start to the season, and mixed with that with Europa League and whatnot. They were away at Hamburg this weekend. What happened in that game?
Well, they went to Ronald McDonald's house, and they and they ran out 1-0 winners. It was pretty even, but it looked like Augsburg were always the more likely to score. They created more chances to hit woodwork twice in the first half. Dong Wanji and Marcus Fulner, courtesy of them. The long goal came in the second half from Jan Moravec, 7 minutes after his introduction, halfway through. Despite the late surge. By Hamburg at the end, they saw Bruno Labbadia's men off. They're up to 12th now. They've taken 13 out of a possible 15 points in the last 5 outings. It seems that they've got that bit of belief again that they had from last season's performance when they finished 5th. And the fact that they actually qualified for the Europa League knockout stages, I think that's something they could build on and use as a catalyst for improvement. Over the course of the Rückrunde and also how they'll move in the market. They'll get a little bit more money, so being in the competition, and that'll draw some players. They don't have a great operating budget, but German clubs are very good at finding players for cheap, whether it's in country or in surrounding areas. For them, it's more about. For them, I always thought it was more about that belief. Like I said, finishing 5th, they have to believe that they could do it again, or else, again, their slow start to the season could be because maybe they second guessing themselves, that kind of thing. But Weinzierl, he's always had the pulse of that team. So it's just a matter of getting the players on board to believe that, last season wasn't a fluke. And again, I think them qualifying for the knockout stage, I really do think that was a really good shot in the arm. And I think that'll see them push forward a little bit. I don't think they'll repeat last season, that showing. But, I don't think they deserve to be relegated either. So this is a good result for them as well because Hamburg was playing very well up until recently. So we'll see how they build on that.
I think it was Alex Asfine who set up the winner. I think it was a really good play down on the left-hand side, and he kind of cut inside his man. And
and he had a pretty solid season last year, so it was good to see him back. I don't know. It's, again, once those players finally start putting in those consistent performances where they believe they belong, we'll see some more of them. So we'll see.
Yeah, he's a player I like, I must admit. Moving on then, I know a team that you've been keeping close tabs on are the quickly improving Hertha Berlin, who just continue to quote unquote do a Leicester. Another win for them this weekend.
Yes, they won 2-0 at home in the capital against Mainz. It didn't feature a ton of chances. Hertha don't create a lot on their own in general. We've talked about that before, how they kind of this season up till recently they lacked goals. They don't create that sort of 12 to 15 chances a match. If they get like 8 or 9, they're playing well. But Mainz did not show up, and for a team that would go to Berlin and counterattack, they didn't really put their best foot forward. Apart from Yaro Samperio and Yunus Mali, the others were quite poor. Vlad Dorita had another good showing. He scored in the 34th minute, and Solomon Kalou scored his 9th goal of the season in the 54th. That was it. Vidadi Bisevic had both assists on that. Hertha continued to defy expectations, and once again, they look cohesive as a unit. I know John could probably speak a little bit on that too if he wants to, because I know he's seen them a little bit this season. But they have the second most effective defense, rather, in the Bundesliga. If they keep the goals coming, if they kind of end up around that 1.5 goals a game average per season, and their defense keeps people playing at the back, and they keep that shape, and they keep that team game going, like you said, they're doing a Leicester. There's no reason why they can't make a strong push for either a Champions League case or Europa League place. But again, like every team going that winter break, they're going to want to either fix problems that they have or build on them. So for Hertha, I think what they really need, they need to really solve that goal scoring problem, because right now, again, they're coming up finally around the area where their rivals are on. So they're not going to ever be obviously a Bayern or a Dortmund. However, if they keep scoring pace with the likes of Bayer Leverkusen and Wolfsburg and Borussia Mönchengladbach rather, and Schalke, they have a good chance because again, they're really solid at the back. So if they can really hone that in, they might have a shot.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously stay tuned, and it does seem to be the leagues all around Europe are providing some surprise teams at sort of highest points. I know Liga is the same. Final sort of game to go into a bit of depth in. Your beloved Dortmund here wasn't a good sort of end to the winter, going into the winter break. They seemed to be cruising. They were in front. Then stuff went on, didn't it? That was away in Cologne. What happened?
Oh God! Well, I mean, it's not the way you want to end the Hinrunde, but you're still sitting second, so that's fine. But going to Cologne and losing 2-1, not the performance they wanted. We went up 1-0 inside the first 20 minutes through Socrates. Henrik Mkhitaryan got another assist from the corner. But they spurned chances after that 1-0. They probably, and Thomas Tuchel spoke after the match and cited the players' mental and physical exhaustion, is his reason for the lack of the result. They had chances; they could have put that match away before Cologne sort of crawled back in it. But Dortmund have played 30 matches this season in all competitions already, and they just played Augsburg and DFB Pokal on Wednesday and won 2-0 away. So that was a good result. But that lack of freshness could have very well played on part. That sometimes when you're a little bit tired physically, you get tired mentally, and you make mistakes. Roman Berkey's error was awful. That led to the Simon Zola equalizer in 82nd, and then Anthony Modeste had the winner in the 90th. So it seems like they just switched off late on, and you can't really do that, especially in a 1-0, especially in a league that has the quality that the Bundesliga has. Even though you're playing Cologne, who aren't the greatest side, but they're not awful. They do have some threats, so you have to be on point from the first to the 90th minute. And Dortmund switched off, and we've seen from Arsenal 10 times in the past where if you do that, there's 3 points down the drain. So, but for me, unfortunately, this is the reason why Dortmund kind of have to accept the fact that they're probably not going to be able to catch Bayern, because again, Bayern will drop points, but Dortmund are just going to drop more, especially over 17 fixtures. It's unlikely they can keep pace. But as long as they sort of solidify that second place in the league, going into the second half of the season, that's all they can really ask for, and that's fine. For Cologne, it's a really good result, and it's something for them to build on. So they go into the winter break on the back of a good result. So their goal is good. They need to make sure that it's not just kind of a one-off performance. Take that, work on things on the training ground. Maybe sort of bring in a player or two if they can, and try to use that as a shot in the arm for them.
Yeah, it's all about getting those goal scorers as well. I think it's Anthony Modeste's first goal in a number of months, and I was listening to another podcast. They had an interview with Anthony Ujar, who's their former talisman, and he was saying that he's still hurt by the fact that the Cologne fans sort of accuse him, because I don't know if you know the story, but he had a picture taken when he signed for Werder Bremen, and it basically said I think something like Bremen through and through or something, and he had the misfortune to be photographed in his shirt underneath that sign, and the Cologne fans did not take that well, and have abused him ever since. I know he got a lot of stick last week, and he did a very eye-opening interview where he said, I still hope Cologne do well. So certainly a club to keep an eye on. Give us the rest of the results, the table, and I know there's been quite a large news story this week, hasn't there?
There's a lot of news stories, but we'll go into the results first. Schalke won 1-0 at home against Hoffenheim. Eintracht Frankfurt got back to winning ways after a 4-match losing skid and a 2-1 win against Werder Bremen. Hanover were down 1-0 at home by table-topping Bayern Munich. Leverkusen traveled to feisty Ingolstadt and won 1-0. And as John said before, Mönchengladbach ran out 3-2 winners against Darmstadt. The top six, Bayern on 46, Dortmund on 38, Hertha on 32, Gladbach on 29. Leverkusen and Schalke on 27. The bottom three is Hoffenheim on bottom with 13, Hanover 17th with 14, and Bremen 16th with 15. A fixture to watch out for next before we run into the news. As much as I'd like to say Gladbach Dortmund, for the bragging rights between John and I for the pod, Hertha are playing host to Augsburg. Hertha are on form and Augsburg are on form. Actually, Hertha is tied for being the most informed team in the Bundesliga right now with Bayern, and Augsburg is the third most informed team. So both are playing really well. Both have a point to prove, coming into the second half of the season. So I think that's going to be a real key fixture, a little bit tasty there. So.
Good stuff. And what's this news this week that we've had? Well, it's kind of the news, or firstly, the biggest news of managerial issues with Pep Guardiola. That's finally come to a head, hasn't it?
It has. So he won't be there next season. I think a lot of us have spoken before. A lot of in our Arsenal groups about where we see Pep going. The predominant rumors are City, Chelsea, United, whatever have you. But he won't be there. And then also, Ancelotti is going to take his place. So it'll be curious to see what sort of platform they build around him, because again, he's another non-German. So it'll be interesting to see if Ancelotti does a Pep and sort of wants to put his own stamp on the club, on the first team, or if he'll go back to more traditional Bayern ways, where we're really trying to really rely on German players, and going back to that sort of German style. So that's one of the first things. Some other managerial news. Michael Franzek actually resigned as Hannover 96 manager following a disappointing first half of the campaign. They're in 17th. The replacement has yet to be confirmed. Jürgen Kramny was appointed full-time manager of Stuttgart in the wake of their win at the weekend. So they felt the instant improvement under his stewardship. He was the caretaker boss for a bit, and they saw such improvement in the team so quickly after they took over Alexander Zorniger that they gave him a full-time contract till 2017. For me, it's a smart move. It's aimed at keeping the momentum under him going rather than trying to look elsewhere for a replacement, which sometimes might railroad things. So I think that was smart on their part. A couple more things real fast. Hanover actually transferred for them. They brought in Hotaru Yamaguchi as a long-term deal from Cerezo Osaka, a Japanese international. They feel he has the quality required to settle in Germany, but also they already have Hiroshi Kiyotake and Hiroki Sakai already there. So maybe that Japanese trio might actually help them through the bad patch they're going through. And finally, David Alaba was named Austrian Football of the Year for a record 5th time. 5 consecutive years. He's still just 23 years old, so something to think about moving forward. We all know how good he is. So
I can hear Tom smiling from ear to ear. We can't actually hear someone smile, can you? That doesn't make sense. But I'm sure Tom is delighted with that news somehow. So
I told him earlier, and he was, as you expect. So there you go.
One thing I would say, I doubt whether it's a huge list, but there is a lot of up-and-coming Austrian players that to look out for, as we mentioned in last week's pod. So definitely.
And actually, either Tom or I or both of us might do a collaborative blog about Austria for the pod. That's coming up. We don't know when, but that'll be in the pipeline soon. So
yes, yeah, absolutely. And we have made a decision on what we're going to do potentially for the Euros next summer. It's ages away, but we might just let you into that later on. Super. Okay, well that's the Bundesliga, and as you say, winter break now. And we'll cover the return dates in a minute when we wrap up the rest of the Deutsche Pokal this week. So, thank you very much, Drew. Right then, in the absence of Tom, I'm going to pick up this week's La Liga.
Okay, so off to La Liga now, and this is where Tom gets annoyed with me because I probably pronounce all the names wrong. So Kris, actually it'll be Kris pronouncing the names wrong. I'll just get the team names wrong.
That's it. Throw me under the bus.
Start with me to get up. Let's start off with Valencia hosting Getafe.
Yeah, I picked this one out. I have to say at this stage, I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable as Tom, so I'm going to have to wing a little bit of this. But I did pick out the 4 games that I actually watched, so hopefully I'll know a little bit about this. But Valencia, obviously Gary Neville, we've been keeping track of how he's doing and just keep having a look at how things are settling there. And they came out with a 2-2 draw at home to Getafe. Goals from Paco Alcacer and Santi Mina, who I know Tom is a big fan of. They showed real resilience in this game. They went behind to a Pablo Sanabria goal after 10 minutes and all was a bit gloomy, but Alcacer hit back within 5 minutes, only for Lafita, who's a player I must admit I quite like at Getafe, put them back in front for 2-2. But Santimina coming up with the equaliser 10 minutes before half-time, so they had to grind this result out. And it's a good sign of things to come, hopefully. Well, Gary Neville will hope for that anyway. And Getafe, despite being down in sort of 15th, they're no sort of easy pushover. They are a side that tends to dig in and grind out results. So it's a decent result that for Valencia, if for nothing else, something for them to build on.
Well, there we go. Now, Espanyol, I believe they stretched their unbeaten home run to 6 games now.
Yep, six home games, as you rightly say. Felipe Caicedo got the winner. You might remember him from a brief spell at Manchester City, long time ago. But he's still scoring goals for Espanyol, and as you rightly say, that's the unbeaten run extended. They're very good at home. I think it's important for them, and Tom is a particular sort of fan. He's becoming quite a fanboy of them, actually. I think he's just trying to be more hipster. But as he's mentioned on this podcast, they do have a lad called Marco Asensio, who's a very big talent and thought very highly of, and I know that he's kind of running their midfield. And they came out with a really good result here. Las Palmas, granted, okay, yeah, they're not a huge name and they are sitting second bottom of La Liga, but they've shown sort of a little sign of improvement with a win last week. They beat Betis 1-0, so it wouldn't have been a pushover result. And Espanyol climbing the table to 12th now. That's 2 wins and a draw from the last 5, so they'll be quite pleased with that result. Heading into the next fixtures, and for a side like Espanyol, I mean, realistically, they want to survive each year, but the higher in the table they can finish, it just adds to their progress. And with an away trip to Sevilla next, you would like to think that this was a result that they really needed to get.
Yeah, good result for them. Malaga got a win at home to Atleti Madrid with a little help thanks to Gabby, it's fair to say.
Yeah, this one was a real hard watch. I'm not going to lie. I was watching 3 games at the same time, and this one was the hardest to watch because it was a real slug of affair. And Malaga, as you may or may not know, don't score a lot of goals, and they struggled for large periods this season. But they got a much needed victory, which takes them up to 17 points in 13th. And as you say, Gabby's sending off for 2 bookable offences. It didn't help Atleti. It was a largely sort of irrelevant game until then, kind of 0-0, couple of chances for Griezmann, but nothing serious, and Malaga were happy to dig in. But Gabby sending off with 56 minutes left. Atleti a good sort of chunk of the second half, 35 odd minutes to hang on, and they hung on all the way to the 4th minute before time, and Charles popped up with what was the winning goal for Malaga, and as I say, a vital 3 points for Malaga, who, let's not forget, just a couple of years ago were Champions League quarter-finalists.
Yeah, wow. God, that's strange to think, actually. Yeah, all those players they had. How quickly a club can change. And I suppose it's only fair, really. As I'm a Serie A man, it's nice to see that Real Madrid can score 10 goals, which will be really exciting for Roma, watching that result.
Yeah, this is obviously the fixture that leaps off the page for obvious reasons. There's been a bit of controversy that's come out of this. Real Madrid are quite used to controversy, as we'll touch on in a minute. But they ran out by 10 goals to 2 winners. They actually went in front through Danilo on 3 minutes, but then they were behind by 12 minutes in. Antonio Amaya and Jozabed getting the goals for Vallecano, who were 2-1 up, and all seemed to be going quite well, except it didn't quite turn out that way. Tito was sent off on the 14th minute, the centre-back for Vallecano, and then Raul Baena was also sent off for 2 bookable offences on the 28th minute. He was dismissed. In the meantime, Gareth Bale, 25, Cristiano on 30, Bale again on 41, pretty much turned the game on its head. And in the second half, hat-trick from Karim Benzema, another 2 goals from Bale, another one for Ronaldo. It was a rout. The controversy comes basically from it's kind of an unwritten rule in Spanish football that when you're playing a team with lesser players or with less players, i.e., 10 men and 9 men, the kind of unwritten rule is that you don't quote unquote murder the opposition, and it stretches all the way back. John, you'll be familiar with this when Spain were 4-0 up against Italy in the European Championships, and Iker Casillas actually asked the referee not to add on stoppage time because he wanted the game to end before there were further goals scored.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this has been an unwritten rule, as I say, in La Liga for a while, and yeah, Vallecano have come out and quite strongly said that I think their coach used quotes such as that his players were mentally defeated and they were on the floor and they were in bits and in tears and were totally pasted basically. Now, it's a hard argument because people would say, well, Real Madrid need the goals. Barcelona had scored going into this game. Of course, they were away winning things, which we'll touch on in a second, overseas, but they'd scored 36 goals. Real Madrid had only scored 32. They now have 42. So, you would possibly say goal difference is important, but I mean, 10 goals, it does seem a little bit of a pounding. And you do wonder what that could do for Vallecano, who have their own issues in the relegation zone. So more will follow, I'm sure, in the fallout of this. And, it depends which side of the fence you sit on. Do you sit on the side of the fence that's sort of pro go and smash teams? Or do you sort of rather sit there and say, well, we'd rather just play out a 3 or 4-1 win? So, it's open to debate, that one.
Very strange. I must admit, I've never actually heard of that before. I do remember Iker doing what you said in the game, but I've never actually heard of sort of that unwritten rule.
There's a very good piece by Guillaume Balaguer who's written a piece, I think, for
Okay.
Sky on it today. It's worth a look.
See, of course, in Italy, the perfect result is 0-0 because
Absolutely.
nobody's made a mistake. But
Yes.
Anyway, best left unsaid. We shall move on from there. So, if you want to give us the rest of the results from La Liga and a quick roundup of the league table.
Yes, I will give you some information that Tom has very kindly provided me with. But the rest of the results, Villarreal, they came away with a 2-0 victory at Sociedad. That's quite a big result for them. Denis Suarez getting both goals. Elsewhere, the Sunday games, Granada lost at home. Celta Vigo, they just keep on motoring. Orellana and Iago Aspas, Liverpool fans will not remember him fondly. 2-0 win at Granada for Vigo. And also Athletic Club or Bilbao, whichever you prefer, Mikel San Jose and Iñaki Williams, who Tom's a big fan of, 2-0 win for them at home to Levante. And then at the early part of the weekend, as we mentioned earlier on, Valencia and Espanyol. Betis 0-0 in the Betis derby with Sevilla. That was a really drab affair, by the way. Watch that one. And Deportivo won 2-0 against Eibar to continue their really exciting season. We should just give a mention to Barcelona, who, of course, won the World Club Cup with a 3-0 victory over River Plate in Japan. So they are officially the world's greatest team, whatever that means. It's a bit of a weird one, that. But yes, that is their official title now. As far as the league title goes, well, Barcelona obviously didn't play this weekend, nor did Sporting Gijón, who Barcelona would have been playing. Barcelona is still top, but they are level on points with Atleti on 35 points. Real Madrid sit third on 33, Vigo 31 and fourth, Villarreal up to fifth on 30, and Deportivo make up the top six on 26 points. Athletic Club, Sevilla and Valencia sit in 7th, 8th and 9th. And then at the bottom, Levante are 11 points bottom, Las Palmas second bottom 13, Vallecano 14 level with Granada on same points in 17th, and then Gijón and Getafe and Sociedad sit above them. So that's the table. The Spanish season doesn't have a winter break as such. They have Christmas off, but then they return to action with a vengeance on the 30th. So I will actually, unlike our other leagues, I will pick out a fixture for people to take a look at for the return. And I'm actually going to pick out Sevilla Espanyol, which is just one that it just sort of intrigues me, really. I've been intrigued to see if Espanyol can change their home form into decent away form. And obviously Sevilla still struggling down in 8th in La Liga, so it'd be interesting to see how that game goes. So that's the one I've picked out. I'm sure Tom will curse me because I know Villarreal Valencia looks more appealing, but Hey ho, this is me hijacking Tom this week. Just finally, Tom's news. The only thing he says in La Liga this week really is that Simeone has come out and said it would be really hard to leave Atletico Madrid. That's of course rumours linking him with Chelsea, and also fallout from the Madrid game. Madrid game, as we've mentioned, the obvious fallout about the goals, but also it hasn't taken any pressure off of Benitez at all. And apparently the fans were not impressed before when Rayo were 2-1 up at the time on Real. So no easy let off for Benitez. He's still very much under pressure.
Probably not helped by the fact Mourinho just lost his job as well. So
Yes, yeah, I can't imagine him going back, but you just never know. Football
yeah,
is very, very crazy this year.
you do never know. Right, well, I think you did Tom proud there, so
I
thank you
hope
for
so.
that, Kris.
No worries, no worries. Right, we're going to swing back across to you now then as we wrap up our trip round Europe's Big Five. We're going to go across to the old high-scoring Italian league. What's happening this week in Serie A? Right then, Serie A. So I'm going to start, John, with Bologna. This game, there was two incidents. Obviously, it was a 5-goal game, but there was also a certain striker who, let's just say, he shared a beer with the Big Mac.
Yeah, it was Bologna 2, Empoli 3. The reason I picked this game out was a couple of reasons. One was a brace from Massimo Macaroni, the Big Mac, as you all know him, or fans in England remember him from his days at Middlesbrough. But he celebrated his second goal by having a quick swig of a beer with a fan in the stands. He only had a sip. He said he wanted to down it, but then he realised just as he got there that he had to drive home after the game, and he didn't want to be over the limit, which I thought was a fantastic message to send out to the kids. But the two goals for Bologna from Rienza and Destro, and as I said, Macaroni with a brace. And also Pucciarelli with the other goal for Empoli. And just a really good game, and two teams who, Empoli, it's fair to say, have continued their good form that they had from last season, which was a little bit in question, especially after Sarri left and joined Napoli. But Gianpaolo has come in and done really well there and kept it going, kept the same sort of system, still playing very good football. The first goal that Big Mac scored, actually, assisted by I've forgotten his name now, Zielinski. Sorry, really well worked goal. Lovely little dink over the defence for Big Mac to run onto. But also Bologna, who, despite losing the game, did play really well, fought on to the end, and just shows how much of an effect Donadoni's had since he's come in and taken charge there and really turned things around for them. So just two very good sides, and Empoli sort of the little surprise package again this season.
Yeah, it was a good game to watch. Again, I was across it. It's a bit of a weird game because there's just goals all of a sudden came out of nowhere. 24, 36, 42, 45, 48. Really, really strange. And just quickly on Bologna, Matteo Destro's goals are going to be pretty vital for them as they kind of continue this charge up the table, aren't they?
Yeah, very important. He lost his form when he was at Roma, when he was linked with all the sort of big moves away to Premier League and other clubs. But since going to Bologna, in particular, since Donadoni's come in, he's really found his feet again. And the goal he got was just, he got crowded out one side and then span the other way and finished with his left foot. And it was just a really good, instinctful sort of finish. The kind of performance that saw him get linked with bigger clubs.
Yeah. Always a player that, as you say, has been linked with everyone and just stayed in Italy. So good on him. Let's move it along then to the next game we want to talk about, which is the current reigning champions, Juve. We've mentioned in the past few weeks they're just slowly but surely grinding their way back into form and starting to get players playing with purpose and panache. And they won again this weekend, although this one was probably a bit closer than a lot of people expected.
I mean, the scoreline's a little bit deceiving. They won 3-2 over Carpi, at Carpi, which sounds like a much closer game than perhaps it really was. That's the 7th win in a row now for Juve, which is a new record, personal record for Allegri himself, and I think it's the first time Juve have done it since 2014 now. So it really shows the form they've got back into. It was a good start for Juventus, but it was actually Carpi who took the lead. Borriello turned Bonucci inside out, who didn't have his best game, it's fair to say. Scored a very good goal, but then Juve straight back into it. Kind of a scramble in the box, everyone trying to have a shot, and then Mandzukic pulling the ball out in the air with one foot, bringing it down with his back to goal, and then volleying with his other. Really good finish if you want to look that one up. He quickly scored a second just before half time from a lovely Evrakos. And then early on into the second half, Marchisio hit what I think Juventus and Italy fans have been wanting to see more of him from him, and earlier in his career certainly, a very Pirlo-esque pass for Paul Pogba to run past the Carpi defence and get Juve's third. It was a nervy last sort of couple of minutes though, as Bonucci's day got even worse as he scored an own goal trying to clear a ball. And Allegri was very upset with the chances they gave up in the last couple of minutes, ripping his jacket and then his suit jacket and then nearly ripping his shirt off and throwing it on the pitch. The fourth official looked scared to go up and try and calm him down, which was quite funny. But a good result for Juventus, and and not bad for Carpi. Getting 2 goals against Juve, even though albeit one of them being an own goal, is something sort of for them to cheer about, I suppose.
That Allegri moment was just brilliant theatre, wasn't it? He just was absolutely apoplectic at the defence.
That's a proper Italian coach. That is. You're 3-1 up. There's only 2 minutes left. How can you concede a goal? It's disgraceful.
and it should be mentioned as well that after conceding the own goal, really there was a really good chance for them to equalise straight from the kickoff as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. I mean, Juventus did turn off a little bit, and I think maybe they were a little bit guilty of going, oh well, it's only Carpi. So I suppose that Allegri's protests were warranted, but in the end, the result that was deserved for Juve.
Yeah, and they are motoring, aren't they? They're just 3 points off the top now, and
getting very scary for all the teams above them.
Absolutely, goal difference is good as well. Okay, let's leave the champions behind. What about Samp? Now we've talked about the little aeroplane, Vincenzo Montella, who's come in, and I think it's probably fair to suggest he's been struggling a little bit. Did it continue, or has he had some good news this weekend?
No, the little aeroplane finally took off. You stole my line. Montella has finally got his first win for Samp. A 2-0 win at home against Palermo. Perhaps not a huge surprise considering how poor Palermo have been this season, but result they needed all the same. Nice goal from Soriano and a really, really good finish from David Ivan. Lovely chip, although I'm not quite sure what Sorrentino, the Palermo goalkeeper, was doing running out to the edge of his box. But again, another goal worth looking up. If you can laugh at the goalkeeper and marvel at the finish. But it's just bad reading for Palermo, because that's 8 points from their last 10 games now, which doesn't sound horrendous, but you've got to consider this is a team that should not be in a position where they are, especially after the season they had last year. But that's Samp's first league win in 9 games as well. So 2 teams were really, really struggling, but Montella in particular, after sort of being kicked out from where he was and then going to Samp and being heralded as, oh yeah, this is going to be great, and really not performing. He really needed that win, and nice to him that he's got it just before the Serie A goes into its short winter break.
Yeah, crucial, because the pressure was on. Speaking of pressure, that's a nice segue. Pioli at Lazio. Now, they've been, I think we mentioned them last week, I think we touched on them, didn't we, that they've been massively struggling, like really struggling, just couldn't find any form whatsoever. And then wouldn't you know it, they rock up at the home of top of the league, Inter Milan, who both you and I follow, and it all just clicked into gear. Just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, Lazio, we're very strange this season. They've basically had the worst luck you could see of any team. Missing players, getting players injured. Not them obviously on purpose, but just especially Stefan de Vrij, key in defence, really being injured. Maurizio, I think, has now got a record that he got sent off in the Champions League, Serie A, and the Europa League all in one season, which no player has ever done before. Stefan Lulic nearly losing a finger in the gym in training. Just horrible things happening to the club. Nothing going right, and then they rock up at San Siro, and within 5 minutes they're 1-0 in front. A corner, a little one from the training ground, worked low across the edge of the box for Candreva to run onto. All the Inter players standing in the box, waiting for it to swing in, but Candreva just runs onto it and hammers it in. Really good goal. And then it was a fairly even game. To be fair, Lazio had improved in the last few, and defensively they looked more solid. They just weren't really getting the finishing. Things looked like they were going to go against them when Inter equalised. The first chance that Mauro Icardi got in the game, nice ball through from Perisic and Icardi with a really, really good finish. But then things turned bad for Inter Milan. Felipe Melo, who was having a bit of an odd game, decided to completely bundle Milinkovic-Savic to the floor in the box, going for a header, just completely not going for the ball. Alleged he was going for the ball, but just basically jumped in and near enough kneed him in the back of the head. And fair to say the referee gave a penalty. Kandreva stepped up. Handanovic did actually save it, but didn't push it far wide enough, and Kandreva buried the rebound from the save penalty. Then after that, things got worse as Melo got a straight red card for basically booting, I suppose is the only way to say it, booting Biglia straight in the face. It's the closest thing I could say. Really, really rash, stupid tackle. As soon as Biglia went down, it was clear he was in pain. Melo then all of a sudden realised what he'd done, was real concern on his face. That's Inter Milan's 6th red card this season, so it has been a bit of a problem. And funnily enough, it's Felipe Melo's 2nd red of the season, so not surprising. The game ended on a bit of a sour note after that, as Milinkovic-Savic got his 2nd yellow as well for kicking the ball away late, and he was sent off as well. But really important win for Lazio. Pioli really needed this, and the team did as well. Big boost for them. But Inter, a little bit guilty of missing their chance. They could have gone 4 points clear at the top going into the winter break here, and they knew everyone else had won. So a little bit of pressure on. Maybe the crack starting to show a little bit. So. We shall see what happens when that returns.
And that, if you haven't seen it, Melo just he just lost it. Absolutely lost it. I think he was kind of apologising as he went down the touchline. Bit too late for that, Felipe. You've literally kicked someone's head off. I mean, it was just rocks for brains. Anyway, how does that leave the table? And of course, give us the other results from this weekend's fixtures.
Yeah, Fiorentina ran out a nice comfortable 2-0 win over Chievo. Roma got a very important win, 2-0 over Genoa. More about that in a minute. Atalanta, despite their good home record, lost at home, losing 3-1 to Napoli. Verona still without a win. But they did come back from 1-0 down against Sassuolo to get a 1-1 draw. Danny's favourite Luca Toni with that goal. Frosinone took the lead at home to Milan, but ended up losing 4-2 in the end. Torino had suffered a surprise defeat, losing 1-0 to Udinese. Might be some aftershock from midweek in the Cup, which I'll talk about. But in terms of the league, how that now leaves it, the tightest league in Europe, the most exciting league in Europe. Sorry. Inter Milan are currently top on 36 points. Fiorentina and Napoli in 2nd and 3rd on 35. Juventus now in 4th, just 3 points behind them. And Roma in 5th place on 32. Milan on 28, SAS on 27, and also you have to bear in mind that SAS have actually got a game in hand still because they had a postponement of a game, so they could actually jump above Milan and move into 6th place with that. Down at the bottom, obviously Verona, rock bottom on 8 points, still no wins, 8 draws and 9 losses this season. Carpi just above them on 10, Frosinone on 14, and then Genoa on 16 and Palermo on 18. So that is the league as it stands. As for Serie A news, there is quite a bit. Just going back to that Roma game, that was a really important win because Rudy Garcia was under some serious pressure. Still is. There's still talk that he might go anyway. But the players, and Florenzi in particular, made a real point of celebrating the first goal, all of them with Rudy Garcia. There's a real feeling that the players themselves aren't taking enough of the blame and that everything's being pointed at Garcia and that they want him to stay and hang around at the club. It's known that Roma have made an approach to Jose Mourinho, as he is now out of work. Whether that comes off or not, I'm not so sure, but it's a possibility. But the Roma fans, they didn't do carrots, they didn't do manure this time, they did posters all around Rome, and there was one rather slightly sickening poster with 11 coffins with players' numbers on.
Ouch.
So yeah, that just shows you sort of what the mood is at Rome at the moment. The Ultras not going to any of the games now. In terms of other news, apparently Inter Milan want to sign every player from Lazio. Kandreva and Biglia are the most notable two, but yeah, Inter Milan have been linked with everyone from Lazio, it should be said. Kevin Prince Boateng, if anyone remembers him, he's been training with Milan, but he'll be available available as of the January transfer window starting. Giuseppe Rossi, there's talk that he may be leaving Fiorentina and going off to Real Betis, possibly.
Ooh.
And the last bit of news, it's not Serie A per se, but ex-Juve star Camoranesi, I'm sure everyone remembers, is the new coach of the Argentine side Tigre, who I believe he may have played for when he was younger. I'm not too sure about that, but I know he signed a 18-month contract with them.
Because he's Argentine Italian,
Yes.
isn't he? Like naturalised.
Yes.
I was going to say neutralised and naturalised, not neutralised. Okay, super. Well, that's that kind of wraps up everything as far as the big 5 leagues go. Then, thank you very much.
Oh, just to say, the winter break is until January 6th. That's when the games start back up again.
Okay.
A short break there as well in Serie A.
Yeah, a brief break for most of the leagues. I think it's only the German league that takes a big break.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to now we would normally take a trip around the world. However, this week we're going to do the best of the rest. Right, for the best of the rest, as opposed to a trip around the world, what we're going to do is just round up a couple of fixtures from our respective hipster leagues, because there was quite a lot of cup action last week, as I would have touched on. I will kick us off and just rip through the Coupe de la Ligue fixtures from the previous midweek. I mentioned in the Mighty 90 that Lorient defeated Dijon, which I actually said would be quite a good game, and it turned out to be that way. 3-0, Jeannot, Philippotu and Mesloub sending Lorient through. Sane sent off for Dijon. That didn't help. So that was a fairly straightforward victory for Lyon. For Lorient, certainly not for Lyon. Lyon did win though, 2-1. They beat Tours. As I said before, they're 12th in Ligue 2, so not a massive achievement. Claudio Bovo decided that he would score some goals. He got both. Elsewhere, Marseille winning 3-2 at Bourg-en-Bresse, 0-1, or if you prefer. Bruno Sarr, Lucas Ocampos and Remy Cabella scoring. Bordeaux, rather surprisingly, beating Monaco 3-0. Goals from Saive and Roland in amongst that. Toulouse winning away at Rennes. That was a big shock. Wissam Ben Yedder grabbing a hat-trick in that game. So that fires them through. He's likely to move on, though, so bad news. And Guingamp won on penalties against Nice. Lille beat Laval 1-0, and PSG, with a late goal from Edinson Cavani, put out St Etienne. And just to put you in the picture now where that leads to quarterfinals, Bordeaux will host Lorient. Toulouse will host Marseille. Guingamp are home to Lille. And PSG, they face Lyon. Lyon will not be looking forward to that. Drew, what happened in the old Deutsche Pokal in Germany?
All right, well, let me go. I need to bring that up again because I slipped away. Okay, here we go. So Unterhaching lost 3-1 at home to Bayer Leverkusen. As John said before, Bremen went to Gladbach and pulled out a 4-3 win. Heidenheim went on the road to Erxebau Aue and won 2-0. Bayern Munich won 1-0 at home to Darmstadt. Nuremberg lost 2-0 at home to Hertha Berlin. Stuttgart won 3-2 against Eintracht Braunschweig in extra time. 1860 München lost 2-0 to Bochum, and Augsburg lost 2-0 at home against Dortmund. So now it's going to be in the quarterfinals, it's Bayer Leverkusen versus Werder Bremen, VfB Stuttgart versus Borussia Dortmund, Heidenheim versus Hertha, and Bochum versus Bayern Munich. So 2 non-Bundesliga sides made the last 8, but it doesn't look like they're going to go further than that. So that's that.
Good, no problem.
Was that game, the Bayern Munich game, was that the one where Alonso scored that amazing goal? Was that in the cup? Yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
Go look that up if you haven't seen it.
35 yards, and he celebrated a new contract, I think, on the back of that for another season. So
he did. He's locked into 2017.
There you go, along with a couple of others. But Bayern are certainly building a dynasty there. I will just whip through the Copa del Rey results as well. Obviously, with Tom not here, I'm not going to go into any particular details, but I will just run through the fixtures. There's lots of them, so bear with me. First one to mention, of course, Real Madrid have been expelled from the competition, losing technically 3-0 twice because they're playing the ineligible player, so they've gone out. Cadiz go through. Elsewhere, Barcelona over 2 legs put out Villanovense. There you go, 6-1 on aggregate. Atletico Madrid going through 3-1 on aggregate over 2 legs against Reus Deportivo. Granada and Leganés, that ended up 2-2. In fact, I'll have to look up who went through. I believe Leganés actually went through that. as he quickly scans through his notes. No, in fact, Granada went through, so what do I know? There you go. Deportivo La Coruña 3-2 on aggregate against La Gostera 3-2. Sporting Gijón have exited. Betis go through 5-3 on aggregate there. Sevilla 5-0. They go through over Logroñés. Getafe and Vallecano. That ended up on 3-3 on aggregate. Vallecano have gone through from that one. Celta Vigo 4-1 comfortable over Almeria over 2 legs. Valencia 5-1 over Baracaldo. 5-1 over the 2 legs there. Athletic Club Bilbao 8-0 over the 2 legs against Linense. They're through. Espanyol also through 3-2 over Levante. Eibar 4-3 over Ponferradina. Malaga, they've gone out to Mirandes 3-1 over on aggregate. That's a bit of a surprise. Villarreal through 4-3 over Huesca. And Real Sociedad have gone out to Las Palmas. A bit of a surprise there, 3-2 on aggregate. And that leaves the draw. Bilbao, Villarreal. Valencia, Granada, Mirandes, Deportivo La Coruña, Betis, Sevilla. There's another derby coming up there. Barcelona, Espanyol, which I think I'm right in saying is also a Catalan derby. Vallecano, Atletico Madrid. Cadiz, Celta Vigo, and Eibar, Las Palmas. And those games will be played. The first legs of those games will be played on the week of the 6th of January 2016. John, bring us to a close with the Coppa Italia.
Yeah, so Inter, Napoli, Lazio and Milan all progressed through to the quarterfinals. Juventus got a comfortable 4-0 win over their city rivals Torino, which probably gives you a reason why they lost to Udinese. They're still in shell shock from that. But the two real standout games was Alessandria from Serie C beat Serie A side Genoa to go through, and Spezia from Serie B. This is probably why the Roma fans have put the coffins around the city with the players' numbers on. They beat Roma on penalties. It went 0-0 full time, extra time to penalties. So the Roma fans are very happy there. But as for the draw, two big draws in this. Lazio face off against Juventus. Napoli have got Milan. Inter Milan, I should say, which is two of the real big draws. AC Milan are facing off against Carpi, but the real good news, if you like the underdog, is that Spezia and Alessandria have been drawn against each other, so one team from either Serie B or Serie C will be in the semi-final.
Awesome, and that will be fun to have kind of an underdog. So
yes, no dates yet on when those games will be played, so they are to be announced.
Absolutely, and we should say as well that we haven't picked out a game to watch from any of the leagues because there aren't really any leagues other than the Premier League, and of course the Premier League has a full Boxing Day fixture list. So pick out the games that you want to follow. I'm pretty sure I know which one us three are going to be following out of those. So that draws a line then under this week's roundup of our Big Five leagues. So let's move on to our next subject of the pod, which is, as usual, the Hipsters Choice. Right then, this week's Hipster's Choice, we're going to stick to the old defensive line this week. And I know John's got a bit to say on this lad because he plays in Serie A, and it is Daniele Rugani. What do we know then? He was born on the 29th of July, 1994, which is just sickening. 22 years of age. He was born in Lucca in Italy. Lucca is an Italian town which is a population of 87,000 in southern Tuscany. So it's kind of quite a small place. He weighs roughly 82 kilograms or 181 pounds in old money, and he is 6'3". He's the current Juventus number 24, also plays for the Italian national side as a centre-back. So let's talk a bit about him. So he began his footballing career in the Tuscan side Empoli in 2000, at the age of 16, where he played in the at the age of 6, I should say, coming through, where he played at the youth system for 12 seasons and was transferred to Juventus on loan in August 2012, registered with the under-20 youth squad, where he became a regular starter during the 13-14 season, winning the Coppa Italia Primavera, which is the Primavera, of course, the Italian competition played for the youth teams from the Campionato Primavera, the Italian youth league for under 20 players. Rugani was purchased by Juventus in in 2013, July 31st to be exact, but was sent back on loan to Empoli for the whole 13-14 season in Serie B in a co-ownership agreement, which is always an absolute real head mess to try and work out. In 13-14, Regani was the star defender for Empoli under their manager Maurizio Sarri, who of course now manages Napoli. We saw his team finish in second place behind Palermo and earn promotion to Serie A, and he made 40 appearances, scoring 2 goals. His first career goal coming with a header against Regina in a 4-0 victory. And in 14-15, the co-ownership agreement between Juve and Empoli was renewed, with a player remaining at Empoli for the 14-15 campaign. And Regani made his Serie A debut on August 21st against Udinese and scored his first goal against Cesena in a 2-2 draw. Amazingly, Regani played every single minute of Empoli's 38 Serie A matches that season with no bookings. He also scored 3 goals. The newly promoted club finished the season in 15th. And Juventus bought out the remaining registration rights from Empoli in February 2015, and Regani officially returned to Juventus prior to the 2015 season starting, and recognised the significance of being added to Massimo Allegri's squad. Regani said, "Juventus have invested in me. I'm a young talent. This is the summer. We all know I'm keen to repay the trust I've been shown in me, and I have a great opportunity here, but I won't be taking anything for granted." But a poor start to the season, and that coupled with the fact that Andrea Bozzali and Leonardo Bonucci and Giorgio Chiellini, of course, the first choice, remaining at the club, and that's prevented Regani from seeing significant playing time. To date, he's made 3 appearances. His official debut on September 30th as a late substitute in a 2-0 win versus Sevilla in the Champions League group stage. And his first league appearance for Juventus was December the 20th, 2015. You might remember that because it was only 2 days ago. Came on as a 57th minute substitute for Barzali in Juve's 3-2 victory over Carpi that John mentioned earlier, playing on the right side of a 3-5-2 formation. And despite this and the rumours of a move abroad, Juve have carefully managed the player and likely have no intention of selling him, and the long-term investment, Allegri recently calling him the future of Juventus, which will warn off potential suitors, one being known as Arsenal. Representing Italy at youth level since 2010, he earned his first Italian under-21 cap on March the 5th, 2014 against Northern Ireland in a qualifier, and he actually scored in the same game as well. Regani is largely regarded in his strengths and weaknesses. He's strong and commanding as a central defender and an excellent passer of the ball. He himself admits he needs to work on his left foot and be quicker on the ball, but like any defender, he can make mistakes. Will need to hone his craft. A couple of quotes. Leonardo Bonucci on Regani, he said he's a player with great promise and he's a good professional. We already noted his quality in the Primavera youth team. He doesn't pull back, and he's very humble. So for the last few years, his growth at Empoli has been exceptional. He's regarded, and this is a quote from Maurizio Sarri, he's ready for any club at European level, Sarri said, and that was in Corriere della Sport. He said he's a star in the making and he gives everything. Now he's ranked first in Serie A for appearances and minutes. For the players, 10th for the aerial duels, 1 and 16th for pass success. So he's made 38 appearances. That's a total of 3,420 minutes with 3 goals, no yellow cards, no red cards. That's quite impressive. 1.3 average tackles per game, 0.9 average interceptions per game, 0.7 blocks per game, 6.9 clearances per game, and a total of 2.8 average of aerial duels won. And just because I'm a real hipster and I like to note these things, he is a client of Nike and he wears their Magista Obra football boots of the 2015-16 range. So that's Regani. John, you are obviously our regular Serie A hipster. So do you want to just give us a little bit of a few thoughts and tidbits on what you know about this young prospect?
Yeah, I mean, he first came to my attention when obviously playing for Empoli, the full season he played on loan. The fact he played every game was just amazing in itself. His age, for someone of his age, playing with sort of the maturity that he did, it was really impressive in a league where, you know, defenders are heralded more than forwards many times, and if you make a mistake, then you are generally out of the team. And he had I think it's fair to say that Sarri is quite a demanding coach, but he does get the best out of people. And under Sarri, he really developed very well. You know, like I said, playing all those games is amazing. And just playing in a team that Empoli at the time, very technical, could play out from the back, but really knew that they had to defend in those certain big games, was really impressive. He's a little bit unfortunate at the fact that he's at Juventus, because any other team I think he would be starting more games. The fact that you've got Barzagli, Bonucci and Chiellini in front of you is going to be very, very difficult to get into that team. The only chance I saw of him possibly moving on was when at the start of the season Juventus were sort of flirting with playing 4 at the back and having less centre-backs. But now that they've gone back to their natural back three, I think you will see more of him as the season goes on. He actually started the Coppa Italia game against Torino, so he's getting some starts. I think he'll play more in that competition. And as the season goes on, you'll maybe see him more in the league if Juventus manage to get higher up the table and maybe jump into first spot and become a bit more comfortable. But really exciting prospect. Not like the Italians to make a young defender up and comer, but with him and Romagnoli, who's at Milan now, obviously left from Roma, 2 very exciting centre backs for the Italian national side. But as an Arsenal fan, he's one I certainly would have wanted to get, but I don't see anyone pinching him from Juve anytime soon.
No, and do you see both of those going to the Euros with Italy potentially this summer?
I think Romagnoli at this point is probably the more likely, just because he's playing. Regani is definitely a possibility. You have to look at how high they consider him. The fact that Juventus sold Ogbonna, who is a much more experienced centre-back who knows the league. Obviously, he had played at Torino and then gone to Juve, and they, rather than keeping him, they sold Ogbonna and left Regani as a backup on the bench, and he's getting played ahead of Caceres as well, who's I know a defender you like. So he's definitely got a chance for the Euros, but it depends how much game time he gets between now and the summer.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, as with all our hipsters, and we are indeed working on a piece on the website, so we can actually post all of the hipsters' choices with the relevant sort of timestamps of the podcast when we go into them. So if you do want to go back and listen to any of those or find out who the previous hipsters were, we will be adding that to the website soon. So thank you very much. So that is Daniele Rugani. Thank you, as always, to Kelly, our researcher, for that fine piece of information, as thorough as always. Right then, just a couple of bits and bobs to go then. Let's get on and move things along to this week's Team of the Week. This week's Team of the Week, then, we have decided to line this week's lineup into a 4-3-3 formation. Again, as usual, we will tweet this out from our podcast account later on, and let's see how many EA Sports agree with us with FIFA. Just a bit of fun. We don't take it too seriously, but it's always interesting to see how we go. And I think, from memory, John, we were about 7 or 8 again last week, I think.
I think it was 7 this week. I think it was 9 the week before.
Hey, we know our stuff. Well, maybe it's just a fluke, but let's see how we get on this week. So let's cue the music. And this week's Team of the Week is as follows. So in goal, I've gone with the Troyes goalkeeper Paul Bernardoni, who saved a penalty, has to be said a poor penalty, from Lachina Traore, but with Troyes playing for 87 minutes with 10 men, and obviously bottom of Liga, Bernardoni made a series of very, very good saves and commanded his back four to keep a clean sheet. So he goes in goal. At right back, wait for it, John, it's Florenzi. He makes the team. Alessandro Florenzi scored a goal, pure passion with the celebration that John mentioned earlier on as he raced away to greet his manager Rudy Garcia, who's still under pressure, but a vital goal for a game that Roma were struggling to create chances in. And at left back, it's Watford's Nathan Ake, the young lad on loan from Chelsea. He got a goal in Watford's 3-0 victory, if a slightly controversial one. He's joined centre-back partnership with Ashley Williams, who captained Swansea to a much-needed point against West Ham. Real captain's performance, and he's joined by the youngster Olivier Boscagli, just 17 years of age, scoring his first goal for Nice, and he makes it into the team as a centre-back pairing. And as far as the midfield, it's a 3-man midfield. Chelsea's Oscar, really back in form. Make what you will of Chelsea's return to form in certain players, but he absolutely ran the show for Chelsea and was superb in their victory over Sunderland. He's joined by Lars Stindl. Careful, John, there's 2 players in for you. He pretty much ran the game for Mönchengladbach, maybe survived, luckily not to get sent off in that game, but was a driving force behind Gladbach's comeback from going down to 10 men to win the match. And we couldn't leave Angel Di Maria out for the second week in succession. He gets into the team, was just magnificent for PSG as they defeated Caen 3-0 away from home, setting up the goal for Zlatan, scoring the other 2 himself and making countless final passes, and just superb to watch in that game. Absolutely brilliant performance. And as far as the front 3 go, well, Mohamed Labi 2 goals, defeating Leon for Gazalek Ajaxia, whose story continues. Had to put him in as a Hipsters Choice on the left-hand side of midfield. Gareth Bale, 4 goals for the first time in his professional career at Real Madrid in their 10-2 victory at home to Vallecano. So he makes it in on the right-hand side of that attacking 3. And up front, it's Big Mario Mandzukic, 2 goals for Juventus in their victory away at Carpi. He's really starting to justify the price tag and looks to be settled in at Juve nicely. Which leads us on to the rest of our squad. I've got the Arfemi Artiles, who's the centre-back for Las Palmas, who was... just had a fantastic game, basically. I couldn't really say much more than that, in truth. But he makes it in alongside Fernando, who's the holding midfielder for Sampdoria. He also slides into the team there. Antonio Candreva, 2 goals for Lazio. Massive 2 goals as well for defeating Inter Milan. He returns to form and gets a place on the bench alongside James Rodriguez, who incredibly set up 4 goals in that Real Madrid game and was just outstanding. In fact, he's very lucky not to make the first team. Daniel Didavi, as previously mentioned by Drew, scored 2 goals and was fantastic for Stuttgart. He's going to be vital to them staying up. And a player you'll hear a lot more about soon, Mana Dembele, very young, very raw, but a real talent for Ram. Sorry. For Ren. I'll get the right team in a minute. He makes it into the side as well. And Pucarelli rounds off our team of the week this week with his performance for Empoli. So there you go. That is our team of the week this week. As always, tweet us your thoughts. Let us know what you think. If you agree, if you disagree, and we will post our team along with the EA Sports team, and we'll see how many we check in with next week. Right then, there's only a couple of things to mention. We have no hipster handshakes this week. You've let us down, people. You've let us down. Nobody to add to the website. Just a reminder, if you want a hipster handshake, it's basically where we will put your Twitter handle, your name, alongside a team of your choice on our website. You get the badge and you get to claim that team as your own, and you'll be on our website forever and ever and ever. So if you want to join in, feel free. And let's say, obviously, with the hipster handshakes, just use the handshake or hipster handshakes hashtag. Makes it easier to find them for you. And as always, nip up to the website, you can see yours. So just the one thing to go then, and that's your questions answered, and that is the onion bag. Right then, we've just got a couple of questions this week. It's been a busy week, and obviously with the festive period well underway, I'm sure a lot of you have lots of things going on. So we'll just whip through the couple of questions we've had this week. We really appreciate all the questions that we do get. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you, and our first question this week comes from, I'm going to give you Ellis Mells, who's at Ellis Mell. And he says, okay, is the wealth distribution in the Premier League a good thing, and should other major leagues follow suit?
I think it is a good thing. I mean, we've all talked about before how the money coming into the league is allowing, West Ham to go get Dimitri Payet and whatever have you, and players like that coming into teams who aren't in the footballing elite in the country. I think it's good because I think people do sometimes get tired of the same 2, 3, 4 teams every year competing for the title, and the rest of them sort of making up the difference, if you will. I know that's a big criticism a lot of times of La Liga and Liga and even Germany to a certain extent. I don't know if the league should necessarily follow suit. I mean, the Premier League can do it because the Premier League makes so much money that so they're able to do that. But for me, I think it is a good thing. I like, what's going on with Leicester this year is a prime example. I would like it to continue personally. As for the other leagues, if it's possible for them to do it one day, sure. But, usually my more concerns are for the Premier League. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Very thorough answer. Like it. Thank you very much. John, you can have this one from Akib because I know you'll know a little bit about this player. There's a lot of talk. I think it's been completed in a Starbucks. I think I read somewhere that Manuel Iturbe?
Juan Manuel Iturbe.
Manuel Iturbe. He has left Roma to join Watford on loan. Apparently. What do you reckon?
Yeah. I think the deal's all but done. It's the I've forgotten the name of the family now. The Pozzo family, there we go, who obviously own Watford and Udinese and Granada, is it in Spain?
It is indeed, yep.
Yeah, Granada, there we go. So it's not surprising that they're trying to get some Serie A talent in. They already have. Excuse me. Lots of people are saying it's an exciting deal. I do get why it's exciting because it's Watford signing a player from Roma, albeit on loan. I think there's an option at the end of it to buy. The one thing I would say is cry a little bit of caution is that there's a reason that Iturbe is being loaned out, and it's the fact that he can't get in the Roma team. And when you can't get in the Roma team when they're missing key players like Gervinho and Salah, and Iturbe is a very quick player who can play on the wings. There's reasons for that. There's no doubt he's got talent and he's got ability. The problem is his consistency. Whether he'll work out in the Premier League, I really don't know. I really wouldn't be able to tell you. I think it'd be down to the manager and to see what you can get out of him. It's Kike Flores, isn't it, at Watford?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much say he has in transfers, is the other side of it, because if you look at some of the players that they brought in, not a lot of them have really featured, and he's kind of stuck with the core group that were in the Championship, like Igalo and Troy Deeney and such. So, it may even be a struggle for him to get into the first 11, especially the way Watford are playing at the moment. But it's exciting for a club like Watford to be able to get those kind of players. Whether it will necessarily improve them, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be one to watch. As a player, I must admit, I've always liked. Just hasn't really done it at Roma, so we shall see what happens there. Disappointing with the old massive transfer fee they paid for him as well. Drew, back to you then. You get 2 each this week, you lucky people. Janzeb Shaheen, who's a long-time friend of ours, he says this season we've seen 4-4-2 come back in, and it's had a lot of success with the aforementioned Watford and Leicester, and indeed Inter at some stages. Do you think it's slowly going back into the main style of play, or is the 4-3-3/4-3-2-1 or 4-2-3-1 counter still the main formation?
I don't think it's necessarily going back into the mainstream of style play, but I think it does serve a purpose as to where you can keep it in your back pocket. So, I mean, the beauty of 4-4-2 is that you already have those pre-made 2 banks of 4 when you want to defend. So tactically, it's easier to deploy if you're a coach who wants to sit back and maybe try to counter through particular players. So in that instance, that's why it's probably worked for Inter, who have been very, very good defensively this year. Leicester, when they do play a 4-4-2, they look a little bit better defensively than when they play a more open 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. So I think it can serve a purpose. But for now, I think it's the 4-3-3, the 4-2-3-1. They're all more about so many sides nowadays are more about putting onus on attacking play rather than being so stout defensively. So I think for now it's still taking a back seat. But I think it's made a resurgence. It's one of the things where a coach can pull it out of his back pocket in one match and say, you know what, let's up this way this day because we want this result and here's how we need to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely one that we'll touch on again, I'm sure, at another point, because formations is always a hot topic. John, final question to you. Just before I come to you, I want to very quickly edit and correct myself, because I'll get thousands of letters otherwise. Dembele in the Team of the Week this week, it was Ousmane Dembele of Rennes. I do apologise. I somehow managed to pull out the wrong card for the wrong Dembele. So I do apologise, Ousmane. I'm sure you're listening. Right, John. Final question to you. See?
There are a lot of Dembeles.
There are indeed a lot of Dembele. For some reason, I pulled the wrong card out. It's like top trumps still. Proof that these things happen live, people. Right then, final question. It comes kind of 2 questions from almost 2 different people on the same topic. So Aldrian CG, who's our Mexican friend of the pod, and also from Bren, who's at Kane_U_dig_it _dig_it. They both want to talk about Leicester in the Premier League era. I think Leicester might make it to the top 4. Aldrian says, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that only Aston Villa has dropped below 4th from leading the Premier League in December, which I think was in 94, 95, no, 96, 97. Anyway, back then, Dion Dublin and all that.
Was it then? I thought
Joachim?
it was when Martin O'Neill was in charge. Was that back then? Oh, God,
it could well be.
It's so long ago.
It could well be. It's black and white TV then. But Bren also says opinions on Leicester winning the league, leaking a good many goals, but in football you never know. So I guess the overall question is, do you see Leicester A, winning the league, or B, finishing in the top 4?
I think I could see him finishing in the top 4, definitely, and they definitely have a chance to win the league. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure. You can't write them out of it. I think it's something like out of the last 6 seasons, the team that's been top at Christmas, 5 of the last 6 have gone on to win it. I think the one team that didn't was Liverpool, if I'm remembering everything correctly. So you definitely can't write them off. History says you can't. I think the way they're playing says you can't. the fact that they got the result at Everton when they probably didn't play their best and were missing some key players gives you a good indication of that. The key time is, can they get through this busy Christmas period, because they've got a few tough fixtures, and then get through the January transfer window without losing any of their important players. I get the impression that most of the players would want to stay until at least the summer, like Mahrez and Vardy and such. Ranieri is the sort of manager who can get players on side and can say to them, if a club comes in for you, we can do a deal, but we will make it so that you go in the summer, so your deal's sewn up, but you play the rest of the season for us. Which I think is a real possibility, and Leicester have money of themselves, so they can go and invest if they want to in January. They can go and improve. The problem is that it's the possibility of, do they then sort of put their feet up because they're now in the safe zone, they're not going to get relegated, they've sort of done their job for the season as such. It's whether that happens. But I think the sort of the tempo and the pace that he's got them playing at, Ranieri, means that they'll want to keep going. There's no pressure on these players, so I could definitely see a top 4 finish. The league, I don't think you can write them out of it. Whether they'll win it or not is a different question.
Yeah,
I kind of, I'm an Arsenal fan, so obviously I'd want Arsenal to win the league, but in a weird sort of twisted way, it would be nice if Leicester won it, just because it is someone completely different and out of the blue, and sort of shows, what you can do it if you've got the right manager and the right attitude and you sort of, and the right squad mentality. Sometimes a squad of not as superstar players as such, but that works together and works as a team and as a unit properly, can achieve something amazing if you all follow that same line and all work for each other. And that's kind of a nice story that we've kind of lost in football since the money's really come into it.
And we can all agree, obviously, as Arsenal fans, that we'd rather that Leicester won it than anyone else if we don't. So we can definitely agree with that.
We're all closet Leicester fans.
Yes.
If Arsenal can't win.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely true. Okay, brilliant. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. I say just a couple of questions this week, which moving forwards might be the way we go about things, just because there's so much to cover, and we don't want to bore you guys. We know that we do quite long podcasts, and sometimes it might take you a while to get through them. So there's so much to cover. We just don't want to bore you guys. So thank you as always to the people that have sent us questions. Just a couple of things before we go. I can confirm that during the Euros next year, we will be doing quite a few podcasts. Now, I know it's ages away, but just to get you on the picture, we will be following 2 clubs each. We will all be following our hipster league clubs.
2 countries.
2 countries. See, force a habit. 2 countries. You're quite right, John. I'll be lynched for that. But 2 countries each. You're quite right. We will all follow our respective leagues of qualification. So unfortunately, Danny, that means you've got to follow England. Sorry, mate. And we will also all pick our own individual hipster teams. I know I will follow Sweden. John, do you know who you're following yet?
I'm not really sure, because I kind of want Wales, but I think Danny might fight me for that. So
we should.
we'll see.
We might just stitch Danny up and just lumber him with somebody with terrible pronunciation of names, just for a laugh. And Drew,
Albania.
Drew, he's got to be Drew, I know you're obviously going to follow Mineshaft. Who else are you also going to follow?
Probably Belgium. I want to take Austria, but I can't do that to Tom, because he'll probably come to my house and slit my throat.
Yes, yeah. Tom will indeed be Spain and Austria, and hopefully by then we might have Jake back. And obviously, if we do, I'm pretty sure that Jake will find somebody to follow. His beloved Dutch will not be there, unfortunately.
I was about to say Holland, then I was like, oh no, they're not in it. I've just upset people.
Excuse me. No, absolutely. Unfortunately, Holland will not be there. So.
They will not.
But so we will be doing more podcasts. Obviously, I know it's ages away. We just want to give you guys a bit of a heads up. We won't be leaving you in the lurch. And we will also be doing a holiday special. Now, we don't know how this is going to work yet. It probably won't be a live pod, because people have got things to do at Christmas, and it's a very busy period of time. But we will be doing a holiday special. So at some point between now and the new year, we will release a pod, which is basically where we are going to send a couple of tweets out for the podcast account. And anybody that wants to ask us questions, or if there's any topics that you want brought up, or things that you want to give us a discussion, we're going to hand the reins over to you guys. You send us tweets, you tell us what you want us to talk about, and we'll all basically do a roundtable podcast of a couple of hours just talking about the things that you send us. And you know what these things are like. We'll start with one subject, and we'll move on to 5 or 6 other ones. So if there's anything you want to cover, if there's a particular player you want us to cover, how about this? We'll even let you, the fans, pick a hipster's choice. So the most votes we get for a certain player, we'll do as a hipster's choice. So if there's any players you want to talk about, any teams, anything you want in the world of football, particularly in the top 5 leagues, send us some tweets in the coming days, and we'll make a note of them. We've already made a note of one, which is excellent, from Rob Parrott, who wants us to talk about some of the worst or some of the bad boys of football, and have a discussion on that. And I know we're all excited to do that one, so that'll be fun. Drew, do you want to just let us know about the other bits and bobs on the website, blogging-wise and interview-wise, that people can check out?
All right. Well, we're actually going to have a new blog coming out in maybe a couple of weeks. A couple, actually, not just one. So people might know Luka Kolakusic. He's very active on Twitter. You know, he's an ABW a fan. He does some stuff outside of the boot. He's going to be doing a blog on Croatia's chances at the Euro. So and since he's Croatian born, he lives there. So he's giving us kind of that, you know, almost a bit behind the scenes look at, you know, from maybe Croatian press and murmurings they're getting in the country that we're not getting. So he's going to be doing a blog for us for that over the next couple of weeks. Also, ABW's newest blogger, Luke, he just talked to me about 10 minutes ago. He's going to be doing a blog for us about Dortmund post Jurgen Klopp and how their style has changed away from gegenpress and away from the way they do things tactically going forward. He's going to be doing a blog about that. Also, my blog is still available to read. It was about the rise of Belgium in comparison to why the Dutch have faltered in the Euro qualifying campaign, and pointing out 1 or 2 reasons that are specific. So mental strength and unity and stability. So there's those things. Also, Tom, our wonderful Tom, who wasn't here, did 2 wonderful interviews for us. He did one with Tim Armitage about the state of Austrian football. That was his first one. And the second one he did was with Phil Kitchamilidis, who is a Real Madrid TV presenter, and he is the co-host of Spanish Football Weekly, I think it is. Is that the pod?
Yes,
John?
yeah, with Sid Lowe, yeah, the Sky
Sports,
Sports.
With Sid Lowe, yeah. And so it was an absolute brilliant listen. Hasn't got enough love yet, so we'd like Tom to get his due thanks for that. It was brilliant work. Go check it both out on the website.
Exactly, and also on interviews, I can confirm that Rich Allen of French Football Weekly, he will also be sitting down with me to talk all things French football, and indeed a little bit of Rennes, because he is a Rennes follower, and he'll be sitting down with me in the coming weeks. I think we're actually going to record that on the 30th of December, so we should have that out for the new year. So that's coming up, and also, Ahmed, haven't forgotten your blog, my friend. Promise you haven't forgotten it. We've just had so much to get to take care of that we're still in the process of getting things edited and put out. So don't worry, my friend, your blog will be up soon as well. I'm right in saying that we haven't, or have we actually? I'm doubting myself now. Have we actually posted Ahmed's blog? See, I'm questioning myself now. Terrible. Anyway, if we haven't, Ahmed, we will. But I'm pretty sure that that'll get some really good feedback when we get that one up, because I have read it and it's very, very good. Right, John, do you want to just ask the listeners for a small favour from us as well?
Yeah, last thing to plug and annoy you all with, as it's Christmas and it's the season of giving, if you would be so kind as to go into iTunes and give us a review, it would really help us out. Just anything you want to say, whether it's just how you think about the pod or any of the hosts who you might like particularly, more than the others, anything like that's always handy. And if you do it, for every person who does it, we'll get Danny to send you a picture of a kitten. There you go.
And what more could you want from that?
Exactly.
And a final thing from me as well, excuse me, is that we are considering going on to SoundCloud. Now we're not sure yet, because there's a lot of logistics to go onto it, but we have had a few people mention it to us. Now, for those of you that don't know, SoundCloud costs money, unfortunately, and we're just kind of weighing up what options to do. So What we want to know from you guys is, would you like us to be available on SoundCloud? If we get enough interest and people are keen to, or they use that platform to download our shows, then we will see what we can do. We might do a sort of a brief fundraiser. We're not going to do any donation page at the moment because we want to just see if there's enough interest in it first. But if people are interested in that, just drop us a tweet or send us a quick DM, or when you tweet us next, just mention you're a SoundCloud listener. We'll take a vote numbers wise and see if we can get on there. And obviously, if we do go on, we will let you know as soon as we can. But as of always, you can download us via iTunes and YouTube. And is it Stitcher as well we're on, John?
Yes, the Stitcher app, which is basically like SoundCloud, similar app. Very good.
Good stuff. So you can get us on those apps in the meantime. But yes, SoundCloud is a possibility. And we might end up having a little jingle at the start of the podcast, but we don't know on that one at the moment. So we shall see what happens. So that's it from us this week. Appreciate we've gone on a little bit, but there's only 3 of us here, and there's so much to discuss. But we obviously wish all of our listeners a very happy Christmas and a very prosperous New Year, as we may not speak to you before the fall of 2016. If we do, then lucky you. But yeah, be safe, be merry, have a lovely time, and keep yourselves tuned to the world of football. The Premier League will continue, so we will make sure that we're still in touch with everything. And obviously, when the other leagues start up, we'll be right across those as usual. And if we do release any content between now and Christmas, or indeed the New Year, we will tweet that from our podcast account. And thank you very much, guys. This is our 10th episode. Hopefully, of many, many more. We're still new. We're still kind of learning the trade, and we're still putting things together. But we really enjoy bringing these to you, and it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much to both of my hipsters for this evening. So thank you very much to Drew.
Thanks for having me yet again.
And thank you very much to John.
Thank you, Chris. Merry Christmas, everyone.
And also, I should say thank you very much to Tom, to Jake, and to Danny, who couldn't be with us this evening. Of course, thank you to our producer, Gaz, for all his hard work, and indeed to Kat and Var for their technical side. And we've already mentioned Kelly for her fine research work. So thank you to the team on behalf of myself, and we will speak to you soon. Keep your glasses trendy and indeed your beard strong, and we'll speak to you very soon. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for downloading and choosing the Football Hipsters podcast. Remember, you can follow us at the FH Podcast on Twitter, or our website www.footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter individually at AFCFreddy8 for me, Kris, or for Danny it's at @the_GFP. For John it's at JWelsh84. For Tom it's at TCanton94. For Drew it's at AFCBVB1410. For Jake it's at JakeArsenal1. For our producer Gaz it's at GazMadJones. And for our researcher Kelly it's at Kelly_Mayor. We'll speak to you next week.